But let's cut to the chase and talk to the man of the hour. If Donald Trump and J.D. Vance carry the great state of Pennsylvania here coming up in just a few short weeks, I know who belongs on the stage as part of that celebration. He is a man who has made it his mission in life to register as many voters as he can in the ultimate battleground state. He has helped flip multiple counties now from blue to red, and he's not done yet. So we're appreciative beyond words that Scott Presler is taking some time tonight to join us here on the Matt Rooney Show to give us some updates from the trail. So without further ado, Scott, great to finally meet you, albeit over the phone. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, and I'm joining you from Berks County, Pennsylvania, just outside of Shoemakersville. Thanks so much for having me.
Now, my first question for you is, do you ever sleep? Because sometimes I'm up late working on something, and I'm always checking your feed over on X, and I'm convinced that you don't. Let's back up even a little bit further for a second, Scott, because so many people know what you're doing, and they follow you, and they cheer you on. They may not know who you are and why you're doing it. Can you explain to all of us out there in the Delaware Valley what got Scott Presler originally interested in coming to Pennsylvania and flipping it red for Donald Trump?
Thank you. Well, I was initially inspired by President Obama back in 2012, and I just saw our country going in the wrong direction. And as opposed to pointing the finger at everybody else, I pointed it back at myself and said, Scott, you're the problem because you're not the solution. So moved to Texas, helped elect Governor Greg Abbott, spent 2 years of my life helping to defeat Hillary, electing Donald J. Trump in 2016. Did the Baltimore cleanup in 2019. We had the debacle of the 2020 election. And something has just always rang out in my head and said, Scott, Pennsylvania. Scott, focus on Pennsylvania. And I am now a first-time homeowner, and I have moved my life to Pennsylvania just to vote for Donald J. Trump. And I know that from the Electoral College, we deliver these 19 electoral votes, we will win the White House, we will win the presidency. And so I am all in on this beautiful, great Commonwealth.
You're probably the only person who's been able to buy a home over the course of the past 4 years because of the policies of this Biden-Harris administration. Congratulations, by the way. We're glad you did it here in PA. You mentioned Berks a minute ago. You've made it your mission heading into this election to flip as many counties as you can from blue to red. Bucks was a biggie. I know you were posting today about Luzerne County. I saw a chart the other day. I forget which number cruncher put it up there. Hundreds of thousands. That's the margin by which the Democrat advantage over Republicans has shrunk in Pennsylvania over the course of the past 4 years. I have to think it makes a difference. But let me ask you this. When you're signing these people up, what's the number one reason why they're telling you they're willing to get in the game now when maybe they've sat out past elections?
Sure. It's a couple things. Number one is definitely the economy. This is an economic election. People are struggling. They can't afford their mortgage. They can't afford food. They can't afford gas. They can't afford to feed their kids. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are taking care of the rest of the globe. Our charity is going to Ukraine while we now have flooding in our country. I wish we had some of those billions of dollars to go to American citizens. And number two, the biggest second issue is immigration. Again, this is an America First theme. People are angry that everyone else is getting first dibs and Americans come last. And the third, and I think a big reason why we're seeing so many young people support President Trump, is under Trump we had peace. Putin did not invade Ukraine under President Trump. He waited for a weak and feckless Kamala Harris and Joe Biden in order to launch his attack into Ukraine. And again, young men don't want to fight these endless wars. Young men and perhaps even women, since the Democrats want equality, young people have the most to lose from the continuation of the failed Kamala Harris and Joe Biden administration. And I'll tell you, I think we're going to see unprecedented turnout, Matt. And I have been registering people in their 70s, 70 years old, and they've never voted. And they say, Scott, it's time. And I think people are finally treating this election with the urgency and the seriousness that it deserves.
It's unbelievable, and it's so heartening. And we've seen so many traditionally Democrat groups migrating, at least this is what the polls are telling us, to Donald Trump this cycle. A biggie, and I'm curious to see if you've encountered any anecdotal evidence out there, Hispanic voters. There's a new Telemundo poll that shows Donald Trump actually doing, I believe, better than George W. Bush did back in 2004 with Hispanic voters. Are you seeing evidence of that in Pennsylvania?
I believe that. And, I do want to say, since 2020, times have really changed. That in 2020, the Democrats had an advantage of 650,000 more Ds than Rs. That number is now 338,000. We've cut it in half in 4 years.
Wow.
Since 2020, we flipped Beaver County from blue to red. We flipped Bucks County from blue to red. That's outside of Philly. That's a really big deal, guys. We flipped Berks County, Reading, Pennsylvania, from blue to red, and we flipped Luzerne, the quote-unquote backyard of Joe Biden. But Berks, why is Berks especially critical? That's a part of the Latino belt. Lehigh, Allentown, part of Luzerne, Hazeltown. You have Reading. That's our beautiful Puerto Rican and Dominican community. And I'll tell you that at my organization, Early Vote Action, that's earlyvoteaction.com, we've hired 2 bilingual Spanish and English speaking staff that are dedicated just to reaching out to the Hispanic community in Berks County, in Reading. We have also hired staff dedicated to just reaching out to our beautiful Amish and Lancaster. We are coalition building all of these groups across the Commonwealth that are going to deliver, hopefully, the state to Donald Trump. You have our truckers, our Amish, our Puerto Ricans, our hunters, our college students. Each of those, we have staff members dedicated to doing that coalition outreach.
You hit on one of the number one of 2 questions that people asked me tonight when I told them you're going to be on the program. Everyone wants to know, Scott, how tall are you? And what are our chances of seeing a wave of Amish going to the polls in November? Answer both of them, hopefully, but whichever order you prefer.
Well, I'll tell you, when this long-haired, kind of pretty boy, 6'5", enters the Amish communities, I tell you, I've been treated nicer by the Amish than I have liberal Democrats, for them being so joyous and so tolerant and accepting. The Amish, they even let me milk a cow at their farm. I hand milked a cow at an Amish farm. That's right, baby, because we believe in raw milk, and we believe in the opportunity to grow what you want on your property rights and to put into your body what you want. And that's why the Amish is coming over to Donald Trump, because Governor Shapiro, a Democrat governor, is waging a war on raw milk, on farms, on school choice, on bodily autonomy. And that's why the Amish is registering to vote in record numbers. And so we are courting the Amish with mail-in votes. We are courting their votes for Donald Trump this November.
I was at a wedding in Lancaster a couple weeks ago, and I could not believe that I actually saw signs on the lawns of the Amish this time around. I never remember seeing that in any other cycle, 2016, 2004. Something is happening out there. Well, let's get to this. This is the crux of this conversation, Scott. What can we do to help you over the course of the next few weeks? You mentioned your website. I encourage everybody to check it out. That's earlyvoteaction.com. How do we make ourselves useful?
Yes, I have a call to action. So listen, 30% of Pennsylvania hunters are not registered to vote. 30%, 30% of Pennsylvania hunters are not registered to vote. Call to action number 1. Guys, we have until October 21st to register new voters. October 21st is the deadline in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to register to vote. I want you to print off voter registration forms. Matt, you can type into the internet Pennsylvania voter registration application, or type in your local county board of election. Go pick up some forms. Bring those beautiful voter registration forms to your local gun shop, your local gun range, your local archery shop, and ask the owner if they would be kind enough to leave those voter registration forms for their customers. We're putting those signs around the state with the safety orange language that says 30% of Pennsylvania hunters are not registered to vote, and then it says hunt or be hunted. And we cross out the hunt and we put vote. Next, call to action number 2. We have 800,000 veterans in Pennsylvania. People do not take kindly to stolen valor Tim Walz. People do not take kindly to Kamala Harris insulting Gold Star families that she created after the debacle of a pullout from Afghanistan. So I want you to bring those beautiful voter registration forms to your VFW hall, to your American Legion hall. And third, to our young men that don't want to fight Kamala Harris's wars, go to your visit fraternity, go to your visit sorority, bring those voter registration forms. And remember, a lot of our students that are going to school here in Penn State, if they're from New York, if they're from Jersey, if they're from Connecticut, bless their hearts, then they can legally and lawfully register to vote here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That is legal. They get one vote, but make that vote count. Put that vote in Pennsylvania. And the last call to action that you guys can do is I want you to download my application. My app is called Early Vote Action. You're probably sensing a theme here. And it's on iPhone and Android. And you can call, you can text, you can write postcards, you can even knock on doors locally. But I'm asking people, if you're listening to this and you're in the Tri-City area, you're in New York, you're in New Jersey, sneak across the border, come into Pennsylvania, help us knock on doors, help us get out the vote, and your actions could literally help save Western civilization by delivering Pennsylvania for Donald Trump.
I'm looking at this app right now here on my phone. It looks very easy to use, so there's really no excuse. That's been the theme of the show so far tonight. And, Scott, you illustrate what we're constantly trying to preach to our listeners. It's really as simple as being a community organizer. Obama made that a dirty word on the right, but going into communities, putting a face on our beliefs, and asking people to participate when no one has ever done that. But that's what you're doing day in and day out in Pennsylvania. You're a treasure. Scott Presler, everyone. You follow him already, but I'll give you the handle all the same. It's Scott Presler with one S over on X. And definitely check out earlyvoteaction.com. Not just to follow along. You got to get off the benches, get off the bleachers here. You need to engage this election, and Scott is showing us the way every single day. We really appreciate you making time for us tonight, Scott. We say that to all of our guests, but with you, time is really of the essence, and we know how busy you are. Please check in with us between now and the finish line in November to let us know if there's anything else we can do.
I will, Matt. And one last thing that's very critical. If you guys don't want to vote a mail-in ballot, but you're not going to be in town on November 5th, after October 16th, all of the counties across the 67 should have on-demand mail-in voting. Basically what that means is visit your local Board of Elections or visit your local courthouse, go in person, and ask for an on-demand, in-person mail-in ballot. You'll be able to turn it in right then and there at your Board of Elections, and then you're voting early, and it's not going into a drop box, it's not going to a mailbox. And that's for our truckers or police or firefighters. But, Matt, thank you so much for the opportunity. Your producer has my cell phone, and I would love to come back and give you an update in a couple weeks.
You're the man. We appreciate everything you're doing. Seriously. Thank you, Scott.
Hey, thank you. Have a good week.
You too. Scott Presler, everyone.